I'm about to make a video that I've been advised by a lot of people not to make. A lot of people feel that this video that I'm making it at a time that is wrong. A time when we should be letting a family mourn, and a time that we should be honoring the dead. The truth of the matter and the reason that I make this video now is that this is a political statement. A political statement in which we must let Africans understand that if you are an African, you will die with honor if you have honor. And if you are an African with no honor, you will die and be disrespected in dishonor by those who understand your dishonor. So today I say Tsvangirai is deceased, and I say good riddance. I hope he is tormented by the demons that he served against his own people. And I hope that he'll be rewarded in hell by the demons that he worked with when he created sanction policies that served and destroyed Zimbabwean lives for a long time. And a lot of people have said to me, is this not a time where you're supposed to be giving respect to the nation and respect to the family of Tsvangirai? My question is, did the family of Tsvangirai ever have respect for the nation of Zimbabwe? At the time that their father was instituting sanctions, at the time you were sitting in little dark rooms with white men to institute sanctions because Zimbabwe would not fall under imperialism, they were going to schools in the United States. They were going to schools in the United Kingdom because of monies that their father was paid for him to be a sellout to his own nation. At the time that our president told the British government in 1997, that the Zimbabwean government would take land because the British government had reneged against the Lancaster House Conference and had refused to give the money that the British government was supposed to give for its children to be compensated for the land which they had stolen, which was going to be taken. While our government was warning the world that it was going to take land without compensation, Tsvangirai was sitting in dark little rooms with white men, with the Commercial Farmers Union of Zimbabwe, with Coulthard, and a number of other white men forming MDC so that it would come up as a political party, take power from ZANU-PF, and stop the taking of land from white farmers. And then there was a donor conference in Zimbabwe in which Robert Mugabe made it clear that Zimbabwe was going to take its land because this is the reason why our people had gone to war for 17 years. And when Mugabe told them that we were going to have a referendum to be able to change the laws so that our government could legally take land through the constitution, Tsvangirai made a lobby to persuade the nation of Zimbabweans that did not understand what was happening to vote against the change of the constitution. And while he was doing that, while he was lobbying for this failure of the referendum to ensure that our government could not take land, he was also sitting in little dark rooms with Americans and the British, orchestrating how sanctions can be put on Zimbabwe in the event that they lost the 2000 parliamentary elections. When the 2000 parliamentary elections came, MDC narrowly lost to ZANU-PF. They got 57 seats. ZANU-PF got 61. And when that happened, they went and sat at a conference and orchestrated the drafting of documents in Inyanga for sanctions to be instituted by the Senate and Congress of the United States. And in 2001, the United States government passed the Zizera Act, which put sanctions upon Zimbabwe. Sanctions that were instituted because Zimbabwe had gone into Congo to stop the rebels that were being used by Western governments from removing Laurent Kabila. They also instituted these sanctions because Zimbabwe would dare take land from white people and give it to their people that had suffered. When these sanctions were instituted, MDC and their cabal continued to maintain that there were no sanctions in Zimbabwe. And the few times that they admitted that there were sanctions, they said that these sanctions were targeted against political figures and they were smart sanctions. What they did not tell people was that Zimbabwe had just been excluded from the monetary system of the world. It had just been isolated from the financial institutions of the world and was made so that it would not be able to trade with the rest of the world. This was an illegal act according to GATT regulations and according to the World Trade Organization regulations, but MDC under Tsvangirai allowed it to prevail, and they told their people that there was no sanctions. When their government ran out of money, when their government could no longer be able to put medicines in the hospitals, when their government could no longer be able to build roads, to fix its infrastructure, when it ran out of money because its debts were not cancelled, debts that were inherited from the Rhodesian government were not cancelled, they pretended like it was mismanagement that was causing Zimbabwe to fail. And as they said that it was mismanagement that was causing Zimbabwe to fail, they never allowed the sanctions to be removed so that the mismanagement they were talking about would bring Zimbabwe to its knees. But they needed the sanctions to bring Zimbabwe to its knees. With this lie, they continued hoping to win the 2008 elections. And when the 2008 elections came, they won, but the military would not let them rule because they understood that they were Western puppets. And when the military said to the rest of the world they were foreign puppets or Western puppets, no one believed the military. But when Tsvangirai went for the negotiations for power sharing in South Africa, he was caught on several occasions talking to his handler in the Council on Foreign Relations about how the negotiations were going. He was given advice by his handlers in the Council on Foreign Relations and those from the British and American governments, and then the leaders of SADC and other Southern African countries decided that he was not fit to be a leader, and that is the reason he never ascended to power. In 2012, this very same Tsvangirai was given a Legion of Honor medal by the French government. A medal that's only given to the military officials of the French government for bravery in war. A medal that was also given to men and women that have undertaken coups on the African continent in the 14 French colonies that still exist. A medal of honor that was given to Blaise Compaoré for killing Thomas Sankara. Tsvangirai was given that very same medal. Which war had he fought for the French? Which leader had he killed for the French? Which coup had he undertaken for the French for him to be given a Legion of Honor, an honor given to French legionnaires and soldiers of French interest? And during that time, from 2012 all the way to 2018, him and the MDC continued to lobby for the maintenance of sanctions upon the normal Zimbabwean, the maintenance of sanctions upon poor Zimbabweans. And at that time, he was being paid by imperial powers for his children to go to private school. He was being paid by imperial powers so that he could live a lavish lifestyle and live to his abundance while the majority of Zimbabweans were suffering. And just as recently as 3 months ago, the same Tsvangirai, the one that you say we must recognize as a leader, the one that you say that I must respect and I must honor, was in the United States lobbying the Senate of the United States, had sent the MDC Alliance to lobby the Senate of the United States and the Congress of the United States to maintain sanctions, to maintain suffering upon the people of Zimbabwe. Morgan Tsvangirai has lied to the nation of Zimbabwe, to the children of Zimbabwe, that the reason for their suffering is mismanagement, corruption, even though he knows that it is the sanctions that they want to be maintained on Zimbabwe that are the cause of the suffering of the Zimbabwean. A majority of you are living in the diaspora. You can't even live in your own homes. Your parents can't look after themselves because of sanctions that were engineered by this man that you now want me to honor. This man is the reason why some of your brothers and sisters are prostituting themselves in South Africa, prostituting themselves in Botswana, and you want me to honor that man who made women of honor prostitutes, who made fathers into criminals, who made men unable to provide for their children because he was serving imperial interests. And in all this time that Morgan was serving imperial interests, in all this time that Morgan was receiving the Legion of Honor from France, I never heard him holding the British accountable for holding up their end of the Lancaster House Conference. I never heard Morgan Tsvangirai saying to the British, honor your agreement, pay your sons and daughters for the land that you stole. I never heard Morgan Tsvangirai campaigning for reparations for the children of Zimbabwe, 45,000 of them that fought to liberate Zimbabwe from colonialism and oppression. I never heard Morgan Tsvangirai campaigning once for those reparations. I never heard once Morgan Tsvangirai asking for the cancellation of debt for Zimbabwe, for debt that was accrued by the Rhodesians in fighting our ancestors. I never heard once Morgan Tsvangirai speaking against imperialism and speaking against foreign governments that want to destroy Zimbabwe in order to bring it under subjugation and take away its sovereignty. All I saw is a man that served imperialism, a man that was given medals by imperial masters, a man that was given medals, the same medals that were given to men and women that murdered people like Thomas Sankara and our leaders from this continent. I refuse to honor a sellout. I refuse to honor a man with no honor. I refuse to honor a man that was going to connive and has connived with parasites and the demons that are destroying Africa and its peace. I refuse to honor a man who, when our liberation fighters, our war veterans, had to be compensated for the scars that they received, for the limbs that they lost, for the minds that they lost at war, for the post-traumatic stress, for the opportunities of education that they missed, for the opportunities of economic empowerment and jobs that they missed, when our government compensated them, Morgan Tsvangirai went on the street and marched against the government. I refuse to honor such a man. And the reason I make this video is to educate Africans and say we must not honor men that work against our interest. We must not honor Freemasons that work against our people. We must not honor men and women that have no honor but who lived in dishonor. And I say Morgan Tsvangirai lived in dishonor. He dishonored his nation. He dishonored his people. And he honored money. He honored paper. He honored foreign universities for his children over us. His own family honored itself more than it honored the nation of Zimbabwe. Otherwise, they should have spoken to their father, not to serve imperial interests, but to serve the poor children, the poor women, the poor orphans, the poor widows, and the poor men and women who are the normal Zimbabwean that just only want peace in their land. I spit on the grave of Morgan Tsvangirai, and I hope that he does not rest in peace. I hope he stays in hell where those founding fathers of imperialism, those men who sat at the Berlin Conference, are sitting right now. Good night.